the hours that was wasted just preparing for a potential shutdown is downright ridiculous to have to waste this amount of hours we can be servicing the American public.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
We have got Reverend Everett Kelley on the line. We appreciate his time. The American Federation of Government Employees is the largest union of federal workers in the United States, representing now 750,000 federal workers. And the president of AFGE is a preacher from Anniston, Alabama, who came out of the Anniston Army Depot. And Reverend Everett Kelley is the next guest on our program. Brother, welcome back to the show. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, brother. Good to see you, Jacob.
Yes, good to see you too. So, you know, I wanted to talk to you about some of the attacks on the federal workforce that we've been seeing over the last few weeks, the last couple of months. And this is kind of related, but I wanted to revisit some of this stuff about the shutdown for a moment. Because I saw, I think it was just yesterday or the day before, AFGE on Twitter was talking about the impact that just the potential of a shutdown has on federal workers, but also federal agencies. And one stat that really stuck out to me was the president of the AFGE local representing Social Security workers. She estimated that 21,000 man hours were wasted just at the Social Security Administration preparing for a shutdown, figuring out who was going to be furloughed, who was an essential employee, how are we going to do this, and what's going to happen in the event of a shutdown. 21,000 man hours. Federal workers in the Forestry Service talked about wasted time, talked about worrying about not being able to properly prepare for a fire, all of this kind of stuff. And you know, as well as I do and the listeners, that the folks responsible for this shutdown, they're the ones theoretically always talking about waste. That they care about, they think the government is so wasteful, and yet they caused, 21,000 man hours. That is like 10 years of labor that was wasted for no reason, didn't have to happen. Can you talk to us about some of what that means for the workers involved, for the agencies involved, for their ability to serve the public?
Well, Jacob, that is a very good question. Let me say that, Social Security, if they are wasting 21,000 man hours, while they are a large agency, they represent probably about 40,000 employees. Mm-hmm. When you start taking into consideration other agencies that wasted insurmountable number of hours as well, you're talking about a vast number of wasted hours that we could be using servicing the citizens of the United States of America. Social Security represented, like I said, about 40,000. TSA represented about 42,000. The VA represents about, almost 280,000. So when you start taking into consideration all of these hours that were wasted preparing for a shutdown or potential shutdown, it's insurmountable. And it doesn't make sense. It's uncalled for. Matter of fact, it's downright ridiculous, to have to waste this amount of hours that we can be servicing the American public.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate. Right. Absolutely. And then, the mental toll on, these employees. Am I going to have a paycheck or not? Am I going to, that takes a really big toll just in and of itself. And there's a law. My understanding is that there's a law that says federal employees in the event of a shutdown, we have to be given back pay. But that doesn't help if we're out of work for a month and my rent comes due, right? That month, the bank wants the money. And so that's, but there are some people, like federal contractors, that often don't get back pay. And that's just a huge issue.
It is. Jacob, let me say this, although, and I really appreciate LGE for going to bat after the last shutdown to make sure that eventually, federal employees will get back pay. But we, just like the average American. Many of us live from paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. The average debt in a household is about $600. And when you start talking about not getting a paycheck, that means that house note got to come from somewhere. Right. That means that groceries have to come from somewhere. The public transit, if you're in the metropolitan cities, have to come from somewhere, okay? So that means that the credit card is a next viable option. Mm. Okay, so in essence, what happens in the event, in many cases, I'm saying, is that a member that I represent will be forced to take out a loan at 28% to 26 to 28% using a credit card, when, it's all because of political rhetoric, so I think that it's unfair. Eventually we get a paycheck, but that long-term effect of that 26% loan that I just took out for mm-hmm. food and gas and, house note, will be with me for 3 and 4 and 5 years. Some mm-hmm. members are still paying interest and payments on the last loan they took from 2019.
Right. Yeah. And so we were able to avert a shutdown this time, but it was only for like 47, 48 days. And so that is quickly approaching. And now there's no Speaker of the House. So how, what are your thoughts about the ability to keep the government open at the next deadline? Or how have your conversations with representatives in DC been going about this?
Well, I think that because of the loss of the speaker, it puts us in a precarious situation. I'm hopeful that the Republican Party will get a speaker and get a speaker that's reasonable, that's willing to put people before politics. And if we do that, then I still remain hopeful that we end up with a funding deal, but it's contingent upon, the GOP being able to come together, select a speaker, and select a speaker that's willing to work for America. That's what it's all dependent upon, Jacob.
Finding a reasonable Republican. We'll see what happens there from your lips to God's ears. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fg.